never thought I'd be the kind of woman who would stand in her kitchen at 3 a.m, staring at her husband's phone while he slept upstairs, feeling my entire world crumble with every message I read. But there I was, trembling hands, silent tears, and a name that kept appearing over and over again. Elena. My sister's name. Let me start from the beginning, because you need to understand how perfect everything seemed before it all fell apart. My name is Margaret. I'm 34 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had the kind of marriage people envied. David and I met in college in Boston. One of those classic stories where you bump into someone at a coffee shop and suddenly your whole life changes direction. We got married at 26, bought a beautiful house in the suburbs of Chicago 3 years later, and everyone always said we were the golden couple. He was an architect. I worked as a high school art teacher, and we had plans. Big plans. A family. Traveling the world. Growing old together on a porch somewhere watching sunsets. My sister Elena moved to Chicago about 2 years ago. She'd been living in Seattle, working in tech. But she said she missed family, missed being close to mom and dad who lived just an hour away in Milwaukee. I was thrilled. Elena and I had always been close growing up, despite our 5-year age gap. She was the wild one, the free spirit, the one who dated musicians and traveled to Thailand on a whim. I was the stable one, the planner, the one who had her life figured out. Or so I thought. If you're finding this story as shocking as I found my own life becoming, please help this channel reach 5,000 subscribers. Just click that subscribe button below because your support means everything, and we're so close to hitting that milestone together. When Elena first arrived, David was incredibly helpful. He helped her move into her apartment in downtown Chicago, connected her with some of his friends who worked in tech, even helped her pick out furniture. I remember feeling so grateful that my husband and my sister got along so well. They'd joke around at family dinners, she'd come over for movie nights, and sometimes the 3 of us would go hiking together in the surrounding forest preserves. It felt like the family I'd always dreamed of having, all in one place, all getting along perfectly. The first time I noticed something was off was about 4 months ago. David started working late more often, which wasn't unusual for an architect with big projects, but something felt different. He'd come home distracted, distant, like his mind was somewhere else, even when his body was sitting right next to me on the couch. When I'd ask him about his day, he'd give these vague answers that didn't really say anything. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was just stressed from work, that every marriage goes through phases where you feel a little disconnected. Then Elena started canceling plans with me. We used to have our sister brunches every Sunday without fail, but suddenly she was always busy. Too much work, she'd say. Or she wasn't feeling well. Or she had plans with new friends she'd made. Each time I felt a little sting of rejection, but I understood. She was building a new life in a new city. I couldn't expect her to drop everything for me all the time. The night everything started to unravel was a Thursday in late September. David said he had a late meeting with a client, something about finalizing designs for a new office building downtown. He kissed me goodbye around 6, told me not to wait up, and I settled in for a quiet evening of grading papers and watching some mindless television. Around 10, I got a text from my mom asking if Elena had mentioned anything about dating someone new. Mom said Elena had seemed different lately, glowing, happier, but secretive about why. Something in my chest tightened. I couldn't explain it, but a cold feeling spread through my body like ice water in my veins. I called Elena, but she didn't answer. I called David, and he didn't answer either. I told myself they were both just busy, but that cold feeling wouldn't go away. I tried to distract myself with work, with television, with anything. But my mind kept circling back to that same terrible thought that I didn't even want to acknowledge. At midnight, David still wasn't home. I called again. No answer. I texted, "Are you okay? I'm worried." 20 minutes later, he responded, "Sorry, Meeting ran really late, on my way home now. He walked through the door at 1:15 in the morning, and I knew. I don't know how I knew, but I did. It was something in the way he wouldn't quite meet my eyes, the way he went straight to the shower before even kissing me hello, the way his entire energy felt guilty and heavy. If this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're working toward 5,000 subscribers, and every single one of you matters. Click subscribe right now and be part of this community. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay there next to him, listening to him breathe, and every cell in my body was screaming that something was terribly wrong. When he finally fell asleep around 3, I did something I never thought I'd do. I took his phone from the nightstand, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it twice, and I opened it. He'd never been secretive about his passcode. It was our wedding anniversary, and I'd used his phone 100 times before to check directions or look something up when mine was dead. The messages with Elena went back months. Months. I sat on the bathroom floor, reading through them with tears streaming down my face, trying not to make any sound that would wake him up. It started innocently enough, or at least it looked that way on the surface. Thanks for helping me move that bookshelf. That restaurant you recommended was amazing. But then the messages started changing, more frequent, more personal. I can't stop thinking about our conversation yesterday. You understand me in a way nobody else does. This is crazy, but I feel more myself around you than I ever have with anyone. And then, about 6 weeks ago, everything changed. We can't do this, Elena had written. She's my sister. This is wrong. And David had responded, I know, but I've never felt anything like this before. Tell me you don't feel it too. Her response, 3 hours later, I feel it. God help me. I feel it. The messages after that were fewer, more careful, but the implications were clear. They were meeting. They were hiding it. They were torn between whatever they felt for each other and their loyalty to me, but not torn enough to stop. I scrolled and scrolled, each message another knife in my heart. There were references to secret lunches, to stolen moments, to how guilty they both felt, but how they couldn't seem to stay away from each other. And then I found it. The message from 2 weeks ago. Elena, when you touched my hand today, I felt everything shift. I know we said we'd stop, but I don't know if I can. David, meet me tomorrow, please. Just to talk. Elena. Okay. And the message from last Thursday, just hours before his supposed late meeting. Same place as last time? I need to see you. Her response. Yes, but this has to be the last time, David. I can't keep doing this to her. I must have sat on that bathroom floor for 2 hours, reading and rereading, trying to understand how my entire life had become a lie. These were the two people I loved most in the world, and they had been betraying me together, sharing something secret and intimate while I played the fool, hosting family dinners and planning holidays like everything was perfect. The next morning, I went through the motions like a robot. I made coffee. I smiled when David kissed me goodbye. I went to work and taught my classes like nothing had changed. But inside, I was screaming. I was drowning. I was trying to figure out what to do with this horrible knowledge that was burning a hole through my chest. Your support means everything to this channel. If you're invested in finding out what happens next, click that subscribe button. We're almost at 5,000 subscribers, and you can help us get there. Hit subscribe now. I didn't confront them right away. I know that probably seems strange, but I needed to think. I needed to understand the full scope of what was happening before I blew up my entire life. So I started watching more carefully. I noticed how Elena's eyes would follow David at family dinners. I noticed how David would find excuses to be in the same room as her. I noticed the way they were careful never to touch, never to stand too close, like they were fighting against some magnetic pull between them. and I started to notice things about my marriage that I'd been blind to before. David and I hadn't made love in almost 2 months. We'd both blamed stress, exhaustion, the usual excuses, but now I wondered if his mind had been somewhere else. Someone else. We used to talk for hours about everything and nothing, but lately our conversations had been surface level. Logistics about bills and schedules and who was picking up groceries. Meanwhile, I started finding more evidence. A receipt in his jacket pocket from a restaurant we'd never been to together, on a night. He said he was working late. A new cologne that I didn't recognize. Text messages that would come in late at night that he'd quickly dismiss as work-related. I was living in a nightmare, married to a stranger, with a sister who had become someone I didn't recognize. 3 weeks after I first discovered those messages, I finally broke. It was a Sunday, and we were supposed to have family dinner at my parents' house in Milwaukee. Elena had canceled last minute, saying she had a migraine, and David suddenly remembered an urgent work deadline. I sat in my car in my parents' driveway and just sobbed. My mom found me there 20 minutes later and brought me inside, and I told her everything. The look on her face was something I'll never forget. Betrayal, rage, disbelief, and heartbreak, all mixed together. She wanted to call Elena immediately, to scream at her, to demand answers. But I stopped her. I said I needed to be the one to confront them, and I needed to do it in my own way, in my own time. That night, I came up with a plan. I would invite them both over for dinner, together, and I would lay it all out on the table. No more hiding, no more secrets, no more pretending. I needed to see their faces when I told them I knew. I needed to hear them try to explain how they could do this to me. Make sure you're subscribed to find out what happens when Margaret confronts them. Click that subscribe button and help us reach 5,000 subscribers. Your support keeps these stories coming. The dinner was set for Friday night. I spent the week in a strange state of calm, like I'd moved beyond anger into some place of cold clarity. I bought steaks and good wine. I set the table with our wedding china. I lit candles. I wanted everything to look perfect, normal, like just another family dinner. The irony wasn't lost on me. David got home from work around 6:30, surprised by the elaborate dinner but pleased. "What's the occasion?" he asked, kissing my cheek. I smiled and said, "No occasion. Just wanted to do something nice." Elena arrived at 7, looking beautiful and nervous. She'd brought flowers, which she handed to me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "These are gorgeous," I said, arranging them in a vase. "Thank you, sis." We sat down to dinner, and I watched them carefully. They were too careful around each other, too aware of each other's presence. Elena complimented the food 3 times in the first 10 minutes. David kept refilling everyone's wine glasses like he was trying to keep busy, keep moving, keep from having to sit still in the tension that was building in the room. I let them make small talk for about half an hour. David talked about a new project at work. Elena talked about a promotion she was up for. I nodded and smiled and played the perfect host. And then, when we were halfway through the main course, I set down my fork and looked at both of them. "I know," I said simply. The silence that followed was deafening. Elena's face went white. David's hand froze with his wine glass halfway to his mouth. They both stared at me like I'd just spoken in a foreign language. "What do you mean?" David asked, but his voice was weak, unconvincing. "I mean, I know about you two. I've known for weeks. I found the messages, David. I've seen the way you look at each other. I know about the secret meetings, the lunches, all of it, so please don't insult me by pretending you don't understand what I'm talking about." Elena started crying immediately, these horrible, gasping sobs. David just looked down at his plate, and I could see his jaw clenching, unclenching, like he was trying to physically hold words inside his mouth. "How long?" I asked. My voice was surprisingly steady. "How long has this been going on?" This is the moment everything changes. Stay subscribed to find out how David and Elena respond to being confronted. We're so close to 5,000 subscribers, and we can't do it without you. Click subscribe now. David finally looked up at me, and I saw tears in his eyes. Margaret, I'm so sorry. We never meant for this to happen. We tried to stop so many times. That's not what I asked, I said coldly. How long? 4 months, Elena whispered. It's been 4 months. But Margaret, please, you have to understand. We didn't plan this. We didn't want to hurt you. I laughed, and it sounded harsh even to my own ears. You didn't want to hurt me? You've been sneaking around behind my back for 4 months. You've been lying to my face, having whatever this is together, and you didn't want to hurt me? It's not just some fling, David said, and the way he said it, the emotion in his voice, hurt more than anything else had. I know that makes it worse, but I need you to know that. This isn't casual for either of us. I fell in love with her, Margaret. I didn't mean to, I fought it, but I did. Elena was shaking her head, crying harder. Don't say that. Don't make it sound like that. Margaret, I never wanted this. You're my sister. You're my best friend. I hate myself for what we've done. But not enough to stop, I pointed out. You hate yourself, but you kept doing it anyway. Both of you. For 4 months you chose each other over me, again and again and again. David stood up suddenly, pushing his chair back so hard it almost fell over. What do you want us to say, Margaret? Yes, we did a terrible thing. Yes, we betrayed you. Yes, we're horrible people. But standing here pretending we can just turn off what we feel for each other, that's not honest either. Honest? I stood up too, my calm finally cracking. You want to talk to me about being honest? You've been lying to me for 4 months. Every time you kissed me goodbye. Every time you told me you loved me. Every time you looked me in the eye and made me believe we were okay. You were lying. Elena reached for my hand, but I yanked it away. Don't touch me. Don't you dare touch me right now. Please, Margaret, she begged. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but you have to believe that I never wanted to be this person. He understood me in this way, and when we talked, I felt seen for the first time in my life. And then one day we were just sitting in his car, after he helped me move some furniture, and we were talking about life and dreams and everything. And he said, "Just feel it, Margaret." Except he meant me. He was talking to me but using your name. And it was like this moment where we both realized we'd been fooling ourselves about what was happening between us. My heart stopped. What did you just say? She looked confused, wiping tears from her face. What? He called you Margaret? David closed his eyes. It was a slip. It was one time, and I immediately corrected myself. But I was already replaying Elena's words in my head. Just feel it, Margaret. He'd said my name while he was having a moment with my sister. And suddenly everything made horrible, perfect sense. He wasn't just falling for Elena. He was confused. He was trying to replace me with her, or merge us in his mind, or something equally twisted. If you're as shocked as Margaret is by this revelation, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Hit that button and help us reach 5,000 subscribers. This story isn't over yet. Get out, I said quietly. Both of you. Get out of my house right now. Margaret, please, let's talk about this, David started. But I cut him off. There's nothing to talk about. You're in love with my sister. She's in love with you. You've made your choice. Now get out before I call the police and tell them you're trespassing. Elena was sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. But it did happen, I said. And now you both have to live with what you've done. Now get out. They left together, which felt like another betrayal even though I'd just thrown them out. I watched from the window as they stood by their cars in the driveway, talking, David's hand on Elena's shoulder, and I wondered if they'd go home together now that the secret was out. I wondered if they'd been waiting for this, for everything to explode so they could finally be together without hiding. I called my mom that night and told her everything. She was on my doorstep an hour later with my dad, and they held me while I cried harder than I've ever cried in my life. My dad wanted to go confront David. My mom wanted to call Elena and scream at her. But I just wanted to be left alone with my broken heart and my shattered life. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers and paperwork and division of assets. David moved out immediately, getting an apartment downtown. He sent me long texts apologizing, trying to explain, asking if we could talk in person. I ignored all of them. Elena tried to call me dozens of times. I blocked her number. What I learned through mutual friends was that David and Elena didn't immediately get together after the confrontation. Apparently, they were both so consumed with guilt that they actually stopped seeing each other for a few weeks. But guilt isn't the same as not loving someone. And eventually, inevitably, they found their way back to each other. I heard they're living together now. In that apartment David got downtown. The one that was supposed to be temporary while he figured out what to do with his life. Instead, he figured out that what he wanted to do was be with my sister. My parents have cut Elena off completely. She's tried to reach out to them, to explain, to apologize, but my mom won't even open her emails. My dad said he doesn't have a daughter named Elena anymore. It's harsh, maybe, but I understand it. She didn't just betray me. She broke our entire family apart. Don't forget to subscribe and be part of our journey to 5,000 subscribers. Your support helps keep these real stories coming. Click that subscribe button now. The hardest part isn't even the betrayal, as horrible as that is. The hardest part is that I understand it, in some terrible way. Elena and I are similar in a lot of ways. We have the same laugh, the same mannerisms, the same way of seeing the world. David fell in love with me once, so I can see how he might fall for her too. It doesn't make it hurt less, but I can see the logic of it, the horrible, twisted logic. And sometimes, late at night, I wonder if I saw signs earlier that I ignored. Were there moments when David looked at Elena a certain way, and I told myself I was imagining it? Were there times when she was too interested in our marriage, asked too many questions about our relationship, and I thought she was just being a concerned sister? Did I somehow allow this to happen by being blind to what was building right in front of me? The divorce papers came through last month. David wanted to talk before we signed them, said he owed me a proper explanation, a real conversation. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him for coffee. He looked terrible when he walked into the cafe in downtown Chicago, like he hadn't been sleeping, like the guilt was eating him alive from the inside out. He sat down across from me and just stared at his hands for a long moment before speaking. "I never meant to hurt you," he started, and I almost got up and left right then because how many times was I going to hear those same empty words? "But you did hurt me," I said. "You destroyed me. Both of you did. So if that's all you have to say, we're done here." "No, wait, please. I need you to understand something. What happened with Elena, it wasn't about you not being enough. You were always enough. You were perfect. Clearly not perfect enough to keep my husband from falling in love with my sister," I said bitterly. He shook his head. "It wasn't like that. I don't even know how to explain it. We spent so much time together because of you, because we both loved you and wanted to be part of your life. And somewhere along the way we started really talking. About our fears, our dreams, things we'd never told anyone else. And one day I looked at her and realized I'd fallen for her somewhere between talking about architecture and her telling me about her failed relationship in Seattle and us both trying to figure out how to be the people you deserved in your life." "That's supposed to make me feel better?" I asked. "That you bonded over how much you both loved me and then betrayed me?" "No," he said miserably. "Nothing makes this better. I just wanted you to know that I did love you, I do love you, but I also love her, and I know that's unforgivable, but it's the truth. Stay tuned to find out what Margaret decides. We're getting so close to 5,000 subscribers. Click subscribe and be part of this community as we share these powerful stories. I looked at this man I'd spent nearly a decade with. This man I'd planned my entire future around, and I didn't recognize him anymore. Or maybe I recognized him too well. Maybe this is who he'd always been, and I'd just never seen it before. Do you want to know the worst part? I asked him. The absolute worst part of all of this? It's not that you fell in love with someone else. People fall out of love. Marriages end. I could have survived that. The worst part is that it was her, my sister, the person who knew every single insecurity I have, every fear, every vulnerable part of me. She knew that my biggest fear was not being chosen, not being enough, and she did this anyway. You both did. David's eyes filled with tears. I know, and I hate myself for it. We both do. Hating yourself doesn't undo what you did, I said. It doesn't give me back my marriage or my sister or my family. You two get to be together now. You get your love story. And what do I get? I get to be the betrayed wife, the pitiful sister, the one everyone whispers about at family gatherings. I get to rebuild my entire life from scratch at 34 years old, while you two get to play house in your downtown apartment. If I could take it back, he started, but I cut him off. But you can't, and even if you could, I don't think you would, because you love her. You said it yourself. So stop apologizing for something you're not actually sorry about. Just sign the papers and let me move on with my life. We signed the divorce papers that day. My marriage officially ended in a cafe in Chicago on a cold November afternoon, and I walked out of there feeling both lighter and heavier than I'd ever felt before. Elena sent me a letter last week. My mom forwarded it to me even though I'd told her I didn't want any contact with Elena. I almost threw it away without reading it, but something made me open it. In the letter, she wrote about how sorry she was, how she never intended for any of this to happen, how she understands if I never forgive her. But then she wrote something that made me see red. She wrote, I hope someday you'll understand that love doesn't always follow the rules. What David and I have is real, Margaret. I know you don't want to hear that, but it's true. And maybe, in some other lifetime, you would have been happy for us. Happy for them. She actually wrote those words, like I should celebrate my husband and my sister falling in love and destroying my life in the process. Like their happiness should matter more to me than my own devastation. If you're still with me on this journey, hit that subscribe button. We're working toward 5,000 subscribers, and every single one matters. Subscribe now and join this community. So here I am, 6 months after my world fell apart, trying to figure out who I am without David and without Elena. I moved to a new apartment in Lincoln Park, closer to the lake, somewhere with no memories of them. I'm seeing a therapist twice a week. I've thrown myself into my art, painting more than I have in years. All of this pain and rage and confusion pouring out onto canvas. My students have noticed I'm different. More present, maybe. More real. I don't pretend anymore that life is perfect or that following all the rules guarantees a happy ending. I tell them the truth. Life is messy and complicated, and people you trust will hurt you, and you'll survive anyway, somehow. But here's what I can't figure out. What keeps me up at night? Was there a moment when I could have stopped this? If I'd paid more attention, if I'd noticed the signs earlier, if I'd confronted them the first time I felt something was off, could I have saved my marriage, or was it already too late by then? And the bigger question, the one that really haunts me, do they deserve to be happy? Does their love story get to have a happy ending while mine is just the tragic backstory that made it possible? Is there some universe where what they did is somehow okay because they really do love each other? I don't have answers to these questions. Some days I'm furious. I want them both to suffer the way I've suffered. Other days I'm just sad, mourning the family I thought I had, the future I thought was waiting for me. And occasionally, in my darkest moments, I wonder if there's something wrong with me that made it so easy for the two people I loved most to choose each other over me. My therapist says I need to let go of that last thought especially. She says what they did was about them, not about me. But that's easy to say, and much harder to believe when you're the one left behind. I saw them last week. I was having coffee with a friend in the West Loop, and they walked in together. Elena saw me first, and the color drained from her face. David put his hand on her back, protective, intimate, and I saw the way she leaned into him. They looked happy. Really, genuinely happy. And that hurt more than I expected it to. They didn't come over to my table. They ordered their coffee to go and left quickly, Elena glancing back at me once with this expression of sadness and guilt and something else I couldn't quite read. And I realized that we're always going to be connected. The three of us. They can't be happy without remembering how they got together. I can't move forward without remembering how I was betrayed. We're bound together by this horrible thing that happened, and there's no escaping it. We're almost at 5,000 subscribers. If you want to see how this story ends, click that subscribe button now. Your support means everything, and we're so close to reaching this goal together. So here's where I am now. I'm filing the final divorce papers next week. David will officially not be my husband anymore. I'll just be Margaret. Not Margaret, who was married to David. Not Margaret, whose sister stole her husband. Just Margaret. I'm planning a trip to Europe this spring. Something I always wanted to do, but David never had time for. I'm going to Paris and Rome and Barcelona, and I'm going alone. And I'm going to figure out who I am when I'm not defined by my relationships to other people. But I still don't know how to feel about everything that happened. Some days I think I'm over it, that I've processed it and moved on. Other days I see something that reminds me of David, or I hear a song that Elena used to sing, and it all comes crashing back like it just happened yesterday. And here's the thing I really can't figure out. Elena sent me another message last week. She's pregnant. She wanted me to hear it from her before I heard it from someone else. She's having David's baby. The family we were supposed to build together. He's building with my sister instead. Part of me wants to be cruel. To tell her she deserves every moment of doubt and insecurity she's going to feel, wondering if David will do to her what he did to me. Part of me wants to warn her that if he could betray me so completely, what makes her think she's special enough to be the exception? But mostly, I just feel empty. They're moving forward with their lives, building something new, and I'm still here trying to pick up the pieces of what they broke. My mom asked me the other day if I would ever forgive them. Not for them, but for myself. She said holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. But I don't know if I'm ready to let go yet. The anger is the only thing keeping me from falling apart completely sometimes. Make sure you're subscribed to find out what Margaret does next. Click that subscribe button and help us hit 5,000 subscribers. We're counting on you to be part of this journey. So I guess what I'm asking you, everyone listening to this, is what would you do? Would you forgive them? Would you let go of the anger and try to move forward? Or would you hold on to it? Let it fuel you. Let it remind you never to be that vulnerable again? Would you reach out to your sister when she has that baby? Try to rebuild some kind of relationship for the sake of family? Or would you cut them off completely and build a new life where they don't exist? Would you believe them when they say they never meant to hurt you? Or would you see their apologies for what they might really be? Just words to make themselves feel better about what they did? I genuinely don't know the answers to these questions. I'm living this, and I still can't figure out the right way forward. Some days, I think I should take the high road, be the bigger person, find a way to forgive. Other days, I think they don't deserve my forgiveness, that I owe them nothing. that the only person I need to protect now is myself. What would you do in my place? Would you try to salvage some relationship with your sister, even after this ultimate betrayal? Would you believe that their love is real, and somehow that makes a difference? Or would you walk away completely and never look back? I'm standing at this crossroads, and I genuinely don't know which path to take. The anger path feels safer, more justified. But the forgiveness path might be the one that actually lets me heal and move forward. Or maybe there's a third path I haven't even considered yet. Some way of being that's neither forgiveness nor anger, but something else entirely. That's where I am right now. Divorced. Sisterless. Trying to figure out who I am and what I believe about love and family and forgiveness. Wondering if what David said is true. If love really doesn't follow rules. Or if that's just what people tell themselves when they want to justify doing terrible things. So I'm asking you, what would you do in my place? Comment below and let me know. Would you forgive them? Would you cut them off? Would you try to rebuild something from the ashes of what they destroyed? And don't forget to subscribe. We're so close to 5,000 subscribers, and your support helps keep these real, raw stories coming. Because that's what this is. Real and raw and painful. And I don't have the ending figured out yet. Maybe there is no neat ending. Maybe this is just life. Messy and complicated and full of betrayals and second chances and questions that don't have clear answers. But I do know this. I'm going to survive this. I'm going to figure out who I am on my own. And maybe eventually I'll figure out whether forgiveness is something I can offer, or whether it's better to just let go and move forward without them in my life at all. What would you do in my place? I really want to know. Because right now, I'm lost, and I could use some perspective from people who aren't living inside this nightmare with me. Subscribe, share your thoughts, and help us reach 5,000 subscribers. This is my story, but maybe it's your story too in some way. Maybe we're all just trying to figure out how to survive when the people we trust most betray us in the worst possible ways. So tell me, what would you do?